Listen closely. There comes a moment in every powerful soul's journey when the world finally notices what it once overlooked. A moment when those who walked away turn around. A moment when those who doubted you begin to watch you. A moment when the very people who took you for granted feel an ache deep in their spirit. A longing for the energy they once tasted but could not understand. And that moment arrives the instant you decide to rise. Not when they apologize. Not when they return. Not when they realize your worth. The moment comes the second you recognize it. Because you were never abandoned. You were redirected. You were being positioned. There is a divine law that governs all things. What is yours cannot be lost, and what is not yours will fall away. But everything that walked away prematurely must return transformed. Your energy is the silent force that shapes your reality long before words are spoken, actions are taken. It is the invisible magnet that determines who enters your life, who stays, who drifts away, and who eventually finds their way back. When you begin to rise internally, when you shift from doubt to confidence, from insecurity to self-worth, from fear to certainty, something powerful happens in the unseen. The people who once overlooked you begin to feel your transformation, even from a distance. It's not magic, it's alignment. Your vibration changes, and everything connected to you must adjust to that higher frequency. Those who took your presence for granted start to feel the void you left behind. They remember your kindness, your loyalty, the softness in your voice, the warmth in your presence, and the way you made them feel seen. These memories don't fade, they echo, and with every echo, they feel a pull, a gravitational tug that draws their thoughts back to you. When you rise, you become a different kind of presence, one that radiates confidence without arrogance, strength without force, and self-love without apology. This kind of energy is rare, and people recognize it even if they cannot articulate why. They sense the shift. They notice the glow. They may not understand what changed, but they feel the change. And that feeling creates curiosity, then longing, then regret. Suddenly, the person who once dismissed your value begins to replay moments in their mind, realizing what they missed, what they overlooked, what they mishandled. They start seeking the emotional nourishment they once received from you but can no longer access. That absence becomes a mirror that reflects their mistakes, their impatience, their carelessness. And the more they see clearly, the more they are drawn back, not out of convenience, but out of recognition. Your elevation sends a message without you ever speaking a word. When you grow, heal, and become stronger, your energy announces your transformation to the world. People who once doubted your worth begin to feel uncertain about their decisions. They question why they walked away. They wonder if they misjudged you. They begin to compare what they had with what they now encounter. Nothing feels the same because you were not ordinary. You carried a rare kind of presence that cannot be replicated. And when you shift into a higher version of yourself, that rare energy becomes even more potent, more luminous, more magnetic. Those who once dismissed you start to feel the pull of your new vibration. They sense that you are moving forward, stepping into greater opportunities, and aligning with a destiny that no longer includes the version of them that didn't appreciate you. This awareness triggers something powerful within them, the realization that you are now harder to reach, harder to access, harder to replace. And once that realization sets in, it becomes nearly impossible for them to ignore the truth. They feel compelled to return, not because you need them, but because your energy, your transformed, elevated, unstoppable energy, calls them back into the orbit they once took for granted. Detachment is one of the most powerful forces in the universe because it shifts the entire energetic dynamic without you having to raise your voice, argue, or plead. When you detach with grace, you withdraw the very fuel that once kept certain people comfortable. Your attention, your affection, your emotional presence. The moment you pull that energy back, everything changes. What was taken for granted suddenly becomes precious. What was overlooked becomes missed. What felt ordinary becomes rare. People often don't realize the weight of your presence until it is no longer available to them. They grew accustomed to your understanding, your support, your patience, and the steady way you held space for them. They assumed it would always be there. But when you step back, when you stop chasing, when you stop giving where giving is not reciprocated, you create a silence that speaks louder than anything you could say. This silence forces them to confront themselves. It shines a light on their behavior, their choices, and their treatment of you. It strips away the excuses and exposes the truth. You were the one who nurtured the connection. You were the one who carried the emotional weight. You were the one who tried. And your absence becomes a mirror they cannot avoid. They begin to realize how much effort they failed to appreciate, how much comfort they took advantage of, how much of your love they accepted without giving equal energy in return. This realization does not come gently. It hits with a sharp clarity that awakens regret. Detachment also shifts the power dynamic. As long as you were available, accessible, and willing to accommodate, they believed you needed them more than they needed you. But when you walk away with calmness instead of chaos, that illusion collapses. They start to understand that you were the stable force, the consistent one, the dependable energy in the connection. And in that understanding, something instinctive awakens within them, the desire to regain what they lost. Humans are naturally drawn to what is not easily obtained. What once felt familiar and predictable becomes mysterious and desirable when you detach. Your quietness becomes intriguing. Your distance becomes magnetic. Your independence becomes captivating. When you detach, you are not punishing anyone. You are reclaiming yourself. You are making space for peace, healing, and self-respect. You are choosing your emotional well-being over unhealthy patterns. And this act of self-honoring is what makes people chase. They feel the shift. They notice the glow of someone who is no longer weighed down by disappointment. They see the growing strength in you, the calm in your aura, the confidence in your movement. This triggers a longing they cannot ignore. They remember how they felt in your presence and how empty things feel without it. The most powerful part of detachment is this: you stop trying to prove your worth, and they finally begin to see it on their own. You no longer fight to be chosen, and that is when they start choosing you. You stop seeking validation, and they start seeking you. Detachment doesn't push people away, it reveals who is willing to return with sincerity, effort, and humility. And those who truly value you will do exactly that. Transformation is the language the universe speaks most clearly, and it is the one response that requires no explanation, no justification, no confrontation. When you evolve, truly evolve, you change the entire story without uttering a single word. You show rather than tell. You rise rather than argue. You become rather than chase. And this kind of transformation is impossible for anyone to ignore, especially those who once doubted your value or failed to see the depth of your spirit. As you grow, the old version of you, the version they took for granted, dismissed, or mishandled, begins to fade. It dissolves like a shadow behind you while a more radiant, stronger, wiser self steps forward. This shift is not loud, but it is undeniable. People can sense it in your presence, your silence, your confidence, your new boundaries, and the direction of your life. When someone leaves you or underestimates you, they do so based on the version of you they knew at that moment in time. They saw you through the lens of your insecurities, your struggles, your softness, or your loyalty. But transformation rewrites that lens. You are no longer that person. You grow into someone they never expected. Someone who commands respect instead of asking for it. Someone who knows their worth instead of seeking validation. Someone who walks with purpose instead of waiting to be chosen. And this evolution creates a shockwave in the energetic field that surrounds you. Those who once dismissed you begin to feel uncertain. They feel a shift they cannot name. They sense that you are no longer clinging, no longer available, no longer the emotional safety net they once relied on. Your growth removes you from the dynamics that kept you small, and in doing so, you become someone they must now rise to meet. Transformation also carries a silent power that touches the ego of those who hurt you. Suddenly, the person they thought would remain stuck does not just move on, they elevate. You become financially stronger, emotionally grounded, spiritually aligned, and physically renewed. You make decisions that reflect clarity and strength rather than fear or desperation. You begin attracting opportunities, relationships, and experiences that align with your self-worth. This kind of progress confronts the part of them that believed they held power over your story. It forces them to face the truth that you were always capable of becoming more, and they simply failed to recognize it. But the most impactful part of your transformation is the mirror it creates. When people return and see the new you, they are forced to confront the gap between who you are now and who they were when they had access to you. This gap is humbling. They realize they lost someone who not only survived heartbreak, but transcended it. They realize their absence did not weaken you, it refined you. They realize that the version of you standing before them is one they are no longer entitled to simply because they knew an older version. Your transformation becomes the message. It becomes the closure. It becomes the justice. It becomes the awakening they never expected. And in that moment, they return not with confidence, but with awe, not with dominance, but with humility, not because you need them, but because your growth made you unforgettable. Sometimes the universe orchestrates separation not to break you, but to reveal truths that could never surface while you were standing too close. When people have constant access to you, they can easily become blind to your depth, your devotion, and the quiet strength you carry. Your presence becomes familiar, your kindness becomes expected, and your efforts become invisible. It is only when you step back, whether by choice or by circumstance, that the universe begins its quiet work of revelation. Absence sharpens awareness. Distance becomes a teacher. And in that space, people finally begin to see what proximity once hid from them. When someone loses you, they do not simply lose a person, they lose the energy that surrounded you. They lose the comfort of your understanding, the consistency of your support, the warmth of your encouragement, and the way your presence made them feel grounded even in their storms. These things cannot be replaced by anyone, no matter how quickly they try to fill the void, and the universe ensures this truth becomes crystal clear to them. What was once taken for granted turns into a longing they cannot shake. What felt ordinary becomes something they replay in their minds again and again, searching for the moment they failed to appreciate you. Loss has a way of stripping away illusions. While you were present, they may have convinced themselves that they could do better, that they had endless time, that your loyalty was guaranteed, or that you would always remain where they left you. But the universe does not allow blessings to be mishandled without consequence. When they lose access to your energy, clarity becomes unavoidable. They start to understand the weight of what they dismissed. Their mind replays your conversations, your gestures, your presence, and suddenly the truth becomes impossible to escape. You were the blessing they underestimated. The universe often uses separation as a reset. It gives you space to heal, to grow, to rediscover yourself beyond the confines of the relationship or connection. While you move forward, gaining wisdom, peace, and strength, the other person begins their own journey of realization. And this realization is rarely gentle. It comes in waves, waves of regret, waves of recognition, waves of remembering what they can no longer reach. They begin noticing the difference in how others treat them compared to how you did. They begin feeling the void your presence once filled. They begin yearning for the emotional safety they once found effortlessly in your company. As time passes, the truth becomes clearer to them. You were not replaceable. Your heart, your spirit, your intentions, none of it can be replicated. People may come into their life offering shallow attention or temporary excitement, but none carry the depth you carried. None offer the sincerity you offered. None love in the quiet, pure, loyal way you did. And this realization is what brings them to their knees emotionally. It humbles them. It softens them. It makes them see themselves through a lens they once avoided. The universe reveals value through loss because some people can only learn through contrast. They must experience your absence to understand your importance. They must feel the emptiness to appreciate the fullness you once brought. And in this divine revelation, they inevitably find themselves drawn back to you. Not out of habit, but out of awakening. Not because you need them, but because they finally understand the truth of what they let slip away. When you finally step into your destiny, everything changes. Your posture, your mindset, your decisions, your energy. You begin to move with a quiet certainty that does not require validation or applause. You start choosing paths that align with your growth, your peace, and your divine purpose. And as you rise into this new version of yourself, the people who once doubted you, overlooked you, or mishandled you are forced to confront a truth they never expected. You have become someone they can no longer reach in the ways they once did. Your destiny reveals itself not with fanfare, but with undeniable transformation. It pulls you upward, and in doing so, it pulls them into reflection, painful reflection. The higher you rise, the clearer their regrets become. Destiny has a strange way of shifting perspectives. When you start living in alignment with your purpose, you no longer tolerate the things you once accepted. You no longer settle for half-hearted love, inconsistent attention, or relationships built on convenience rather than reciprocity. You begin to value your time, your peace, your spirit, and this inner shift radiates outward in ways they cannot ignore. They watch you glow differently, carry yourself differently, make decisions that reflect strength rather than longing. They see you stepping into opportunities, connections, and experiences that elevate you beyond the version of yourself they once knew. And with every step you take into your higher life, something inside them tightens. A quiet ache that whispers, "I lost someone extraordinary." Regret does not always scream. Sometimes it observes. Sometimes it watches your life unfold from a distance and realizes, moment by moment, that they misjudged your worth. They see your progress. They see your healing. They see you thriving in ways they once thought you couldn't without them. And each accomplishment, each milestone, each moment of joy becomes a silent reminder of what they failed to appreciate. While you rise, they begin to descend into the reality of their own choices. They feel the weight of every moment they dismissed your heart, every time they ignored your effort, every chance they failed to honor your presence. Destiny turns into a mirror they cannot escape. Stepping into your destiny also creates a separation they never anticipated. You become harder to access, not because you are closed off, but because your energy no longer entertains what drains you. Your standards shift. Your boundaries strengthen. Your intuition sharpens. And suddenly, the version of you they took lightly is gone. In its place stands someone empowered, someone aligned, someone radiant with self-respect. They realize too late that the door they casually walked away from now requires effort. Effort they never bothered to give when the access was easy. And this is where their regret deepens. They come to understand that while they remained the same, you evolved. While they stayed stagnant, you stepped into your purpose. While they failed to give you the love you deserved, destiny began preparing people who can. They start to see that they did not lose you because you weren't enough. They lost you because you outgrew the space they were willing to hold for you. You become unforgettable not by seeking attention, but by becoming the most powerful version of yourself, and that version the one aligned with purpose, peace, and divine direction, will always cause those who mishandled you to look back with longing, wishing they had treated you better, wishing they had recognized your worth, wishing they had stayed when they had the chance. And destiny, with its quiet justice, allows them to feel that regret fully, because it is through that regret that they finally see what they were too blind to value: the rarity, the strength, and the beauty of who you are.